Hello and welcome to the channel. I am here for another ranking video for you guys. Now for this ranking, I'll be ranking the Rush discography. Now, I thought that ranking the Iron Maiden discography was very difficult, but this is probably going to be my most difficult ranking yet on this channel. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think Rush has ever released a bad album. Obviously some are better than others, and when it came to the bottom few, it was pretty simple. Same with the top three, that's pretty simple too. But towards the middle of this ranking, that is where things start to get a little difficult, because it's like, I don't know which one I like more, because I do enjoy most of them in many different ways. So yeah. And with that being said, I don't think Rush has ever released a bad album, but it is pretty clear, I guess, what are the weakest, I guess. But I think this is a pretty consistent ranking I got here for Rush. So yeah, this is what you're going to get for this video. Now, some of these placings I have for these albums might be a little unpopular, but let's go ahead and begin with this ranking nonetheless. So at the bottom, I got Vapor Trails. Now, this is definitely my least favorite Rush album. Part of the problem is it's just a little too long, I think. This album just really overstays its welcome. And it has a pretty muddy production too. The production isn't very good, which I do know that they've released a remixed version for this album, which I'll probably pick up sometime if I ever see it, to put it in the collection, of course. But this album definitely has some good songs on it. I do like Ghost Rider, Peaceful Kingdom, and The Stars Look Down. Yeah, those are some really good songs. But all in all, Vapor Trails, I mean, it is probably their worst album, but it's not a bad album still. Next, we got Presto. Now, this is definitely another one of their weakest albums. I mean, that's for sure. I think most Rush fans, you'll never see most Rush fans put this like in the top 5 or whatever. That just doesn't happen, This album isn't bad either, but it's just got a lot of forgettable tracks and just, I don't know. I do like songs like Show Don't Tell, Chain Lightning, and the title track is pretty cool as well. Now, Scars, I think, is a pretty unique song. Not one of my favorites, but I do like this song a little bit. But yeah, Presto, definitely not one of their best, but I think it's a decent album. So next up, we got Snakes and Arrows. Some people might be a little surprised of where I have this album. Some people might disagree that I have this album as low as I do on my ranking, but the reason I have it as low as I do is mainly due to replay value, especially with the second half. The second half of this album really does fall kind of flat for me. The first half is really good though. I like songs like Far Cry, Armor and Sword, and Workin' Them Angels. I mean, these are some really good songs, but yeah, Snakes and Arrows, definitely not one of their best, but I think it's a pretty good album. So next up, we got Counterparts. This album is a little underrated. I think this is actually one of Rush's heaviest albums, so if you are looking for, I guess, Rush's heavier side, this is definitely the album for you. But I do think this is a good album. Even though I don't think it's one of their best, of course. I like songs like Stick It Out, of course. It's the leading single. Cut to the Chase and Nobody's Hero are also really good. But yeah, Counterparts, definitely not one of their best, but I do like the album. Alright, so next up we got Clockwork Angels, their most recent album, and I actually dig this album. This is definitely the best of their modern material. I do like this album. I like songs like the title track, Halo Effect, The Wreckers, and The Garden. I mean, these are some really good songs. I would even say that this is another one of Rush's heavier sounding albums too, but I don't know. That's kind of a tough call though. But yeah, Clockwork Angels, it's a good album, but not one of their best, of course. Okay, so next up we got Test for Echo. Now, I think this album is actually pretty underrated. I know there's some people that would have this album at the bottom, but I personally don't understand why it would be at the bottom. I actually really dig this album. I like songs like the title track, Half the World, Time in Motion, and Resist. I mean, these are actually some really good songs, but yeah, I actually really like this album. There's some songs that do have the replay value, and I do like the album. But yeah, Test for Echo, definitely a very good album. Alright, so next up we got Roll the Bones, which is also kind of underrated. I like this album too. I like songs like Dreamline, Bravado, and Ghost of a Chance, which is kind of a unique song as well. I don't know if it's just me, but this album definitely gives me some Coldplay vibes. I'm not sure if anyone else hears that too, though. But I kind of do have the feeling that maybe Coldplay has taken some inspiration from Rush, particularly this album. With songs like Bravado and Ghost of a Chance, I mean, those songs kind of remind me of the X and Y era of Coldplay. I don't know. I could be completely wrong about the influence, though, but I don't know. That's just what those songs kind of remind me of, but yeah. Roll the Bones, nonetheless, is a very good album. Definitely kind of dark sounding, which I do like, and I think it is the best of their 90s material. So, yeah, Roll the Bones, definitely a really good album. Okay, so next up we got the debut album, self-titled, Rush, and I mean, what can I say? I really like this album too. If you're into Led Zeppelin, you'll probably really like this album. This album is definitely Led Zeppelin influenced. I mean, definitely the closest they've gotten to Led Zeppelin's sound, I guess. I mean, this is before they had Neil Peart on drums. I do like songs like Here Again, In the Mood, and Working Man, of course. I mean, these are some classics. Can't go wrong with them. Yeah, this album doesn't have the strongest replay value, but I do like the album overall. I think it's still a great album, so the debut album, Rush. So next up, some people might disagree with where I have this album in my ranking, but hey, whatever. It's my ranking. It's my opinion. So next up we got Permanent Waves. Now, I do like just about every song on this album, but the replay value just isn't the strongest in the second half. The Spirit of Radio and Free Will are really great songs, and of course they're some of Rush's biggest songs, so yeah. These are definitely very solid tracks, but I don't know, the replay value isn't all there, even though the second half isn't bad, but yeah. I still think it's a great album though, so Permanent Waves. Now, next up, some people will definitely disagree with me having this album above Permanent Waves, for sure. Next up, we got Hold Your Fire. I know there's some people that would have this album at the bottom. I personally don't see why. This album is actually really good. I mean, it's got great songs like Force 10, Time Stands Still, of course, it's a classic. Open Secrets, which I think is pretty underrated. Same with Prime Mover, and Mission is another great song as well. But yeah, this album definitely has a lot of great material on it. A lot of overlooked stuff too, but yeah, I definitely like the album, and I'll never understand why people have this at the bottom, because this is actually a pretty underrated album. Obviously, it's not one of their best or anything, but I do like the album. But yeah, Hold Your Fire. Next up, we got Caress of Steel, and this is, of course, one of their classic albums, and not the best of their 70s work, but I do like the album. I do like Bastille Day, or however you say it. Lakeside Park is also really good. yeah, just about every song on here I think is really good. Um, but yeah, the tracks on here are fairly long. They come in parts, but yeah, it's definitely very unique, and I think it's a great album overall. So, Caress of Steel. Next up, not sure how some people would feel about me having this album where it is on my ranking, but I think this album is also very underrated. But next up, we got Power Windows. Very underrated Rush album. I like songs like The Big Money, Marathon, Mystic Rhythms. I mean, these are some really great tracks. But yeah, definitely one of their most 80s sounding albums, I think. Definitely the album where I think they took the synths work very seriously. This is definitely this is probably their most synths-y album, if that makes sense. But yeah, I do like the album though. I think it's actually a really great album and underrated too. So, Power Windows. Next up, we got Fly By Night. I know there's some debates on, this album or the debut album being better or whatever. I personally do prefer Fly By Night, mainly just due to replay value in general. This album definitely has a lot of great songs on it. I like Anthem, Best I Can, the title track, and Rivendell. I mean, these are some really great songs, but yeah, definitely a classic. Definitely a great album, so Fly By Night. Alright, so next up, we got Grace Under Pressure. This is another album in their synths era, of course. I definitely dig this album. This album is fantastic. Definitely one of the best in their 80s work, I think. I like songs like Distant Early Warning, After Image, Red Sector A, The Enemy Within. I mean, just really great songs you got on this album, especially in the first half. But yeah, Grace Under Pressure, I mean, it's a fantastic album. If you haven't listened to it in a while, definitely go back and revisit it. To an extent, this album is also kind of overlooked as well, but yeah, great album. Okay, so next up, we got Signals. I mean, definitely a great album. It's a classic. I mean, can't go wrong with this album. I mean, you got classics on it like Subdivisions, The Analog Kid, Chemistry, New World Man, Losing It, Countdown. I mean, I pretty much got little to no complaints with this album. I mean, this is definitely one of the best in their 80s work. I mean, it's got Subdivisions, which is one of my favorite Rush songs, of course, but yeah, I really dig this album. So, Signals, definitely a great album. Okay, so we got 4 more to go. Now, these last 4, I mean, they could be interchangeable because, I mean, these are all just fantastic albums. Can't go wrong with them. But yeah, at number 4, we got 2112, which is, of course, a classic, one of their most successful albums, and for good reason, too. I really dig this album. Got many great songs on it, like the title track, which is one of Rush's most unique songs, and definitely one of the best Rush songs of all time. You also got songs like The Twilight Zone, Lessons, and Tears. I mean, these are also really great songs, but yeah, definitely a very unique album in their discography, too. But yeah, 2112, definitely one of their best. Great album. Okay, so next up, we got Hemispheres. Now, I know there's some people that actually would have this album at number 1. For me personally, I don't think it deserves to be number 1, but definitely top 3 Rush albums for sure, though. You do get a lot of great songs on here, like Cygnus X, Book 2, Circumstances, and The Trees. I mean, this is also another one of their most unique albums. But yeah, I really like this album a lot, so Hemispheres, great album. So we're now at the top 2. Now, this next album I got at number 2. I mean, it's probably my favorite of their 70s time. I mean, this album is just fantastic. Recommend it to anyone who loves music, anyone who loves rock music in general. And that is A Farewell to Kings. And I'm not sure how some people would feel about me putting this album above 2112 and Hemispheres, but I don't know. I really love this album. It's just fantastic. I like the title track, Xanada, Closer to the Heart, and many others. But yeah, this album just, I don't think has any bad tracks on it. They're all great tracks. But yeah, A Farewell to Kings is definitely one of their best, and my favorite of their 70s material for sure. So yeah, great album. So now we are here at number 1. Now you guys probably already know what number 1 is at this point. It is my first Rush album, the album that really got me into the band. And that is the album Moving Pictures. And I mean, what can I say about this album that hasn't already been said? This album is just, it's phenomenal. It's a fantastic album. I got no complaints whatsoever with this album. Every song on here is great. Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, Limelight, The Camera Eye, Vital Signs. I mean, I can go on and on about this album, but yeah, this is one of those albums that I would hands down give a 10 out of 10 to. Definitely just a fantastic album. This is an album that I would not just recommend to Rush fans, but I would also recommend it to rock fans, and just fans of music in general. I mean, definitely check out this album. But yeah, Moving Pictures, I mean, it's an awesome album. Can't go wrong with it. So it's my number 1, and it's always been my favorite Rush album. So there you go. That is my ranking of the Rush discography. Like I said, this discography was very difficult for me, especially whenever you got to albums like Permanent Waves and Hold Your Fire in this ranking. Like, those albums could be interchangeable, I guess. Same with the debut album, but I don't know. It's a very hard discography to rank since they have just several great albums. But yeah, that's my ranking for the Rush discography. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I didn't include cover albums or live albums or anything. I just mainly stuck with the studio albums for Rush. So let me know what you guys think of my ranking for this band, and let me know how you guys would rank their discography. So with that being said, thanks for watching, have a nice day, and take care.